Hey folks, this is Joe Rule with the Bold Visions podcast, where I interview people who work with disruptive technology about how to tell better stories about tech. Show notes and links for this episode can be found at racontouranimation.com/podcast. And as always, this episode is sponsored by Raconteur Animation. Today on the show, I spoke with Mary Hart. She's the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Locus Robotics, which has a robotics platform that helps warehouse workers move what matters with autonomous mobile robots. And those are AMRs for short. She is the author of the Total Guide to Warehouse Automation at Locus Robotics. It's a book you can find on their website, as well as Some Horrific Evening, which is her personal book that you can find on Amazon or in the show notes to this episode. Hart previously worked in marketing at B2B tech companies and earned her undergraduate degree in English from Stonehill College. In the beginning of this episode, Mary tells the origin story and rise to fame of her reptilian alter ego, Pinky T. Rexadero. Then we get a bit more serious, and she explains how Locus Robotics has had such great success around reducing customer fears of robotics, to the point where people actually celebrate and love the robots and the difference that they're making in their day-to-day lives at work. And she shares some wisdom around the best ways and places to connect with warehouse managers and logistics, including resources for making great meme posts, which she does quite frequently on LinkedIn. I highly recommend checking those out for a good laugh. And then towards the end, Mary shares some valuable copywriting tips for ChatGPT and some other recommendations for marketing and robotics. This conversation was lots of fun and in particular valuable for me in learning how she approaches copywriting and customer personas and how she's able to plug those into ChatGPT and just the different ways that they connect to their customers at Locus Robotics. So prepare yourself however you typically do when listening to a podcast. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Mary Hart. Mary, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate you having me.
I really look forward to chatting. I've been looking forward to meeting you and hearing a bit about your story and learning about Locus and all you guys are working on. Another guest on the podcast knew about you guys and has said really good things. So I'm curious to learn more for sure. But I
Well,
thought
I
it would
love to
be,
hear that. Thank you.
yeah, you guys are popular. So I thought it would be fun to start out with something light and hopefully, just a fun story for you to tell. We connected on LinkedIn I think in the last year or so, and there's this recurring thing that you post about or you mention. I think you refer to yourself as a pink T-Rex, and it makes your LinkedIn presence very, very memorable, which is appropriate because that's your, kind of your thing, your job. But I wondered if you could tell the story of that and where it came from and what it's become.
Absolutely. Glad to. That would be Pinky T. Rexadero. And I started that about 4 years ago. I had bought the suit a couple months before that, planning on using it for Halloween or something like that. And then the pandemic started. But people knew I had the suit because I put up a couple of videos on a Facebook or Instagram about me just prancing around in the suit outside, down the street, etc. And someone shared a post with me of two people in brown T-Rex suits in Milford, New Hampshire, standing up on the street holding signs that said, "We didn't wash our hands. We went extinct. Wash your hands." So I was like, you know what? I'm like, okay, I have to recreate it. So I got my son, who's 21, to film me outside wearing the pink T-Rex suit. And I had kind of like the opener, well, one of those scenes from Love Actually with the big placard cards that you hold up and reveal away. One said, "We miss you." One said, "Wash your hands." One said, "Don't go extinct." And I posted that and people loved it and thought it was hilarious. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I post that on LinkedIn as well and see what happens? I knew that my boss would be okay with it at the time. And she loved it. She said it was the first laugh she'd had in like a week. And people kept telling me how much they loved it. So I kept doing it, including random things like Pinky Rexadero goes to hug a tree, which doesn't go well because then Pinky's mouth chomped the tree. Or Pinky decides to go sit in her car and go for a drive. Pinky can't get in a car. Pinky's too big to get in a car. Pinky's head chomped the top of the car and her tail got stuck out the window. It was just a whole thing. But I kept doing it because at that time, everyone needed a laugh, and I was able to provide some joy to people, and it just made them happy, and I love doing that. And my boss loved it. She said, that it was something that made her happy during the pandemic, and a lot of people on LinkedIn said the same thing. And I'm a people pleaser at heart, so of course I kept doing it. And there was more and more videos, to the point that I then went to a local children's school because a friend of mine saw it, and she's a teacher at a Montessori school. And I went outside while they were outside in the class during the pandemic. I was outside against the wall. They were playing outside, and I danced around and roared at them. And they said, "We love Barbie Dino." And I'm like, "No, I'm not Barbie Dino." But I was coming up with a name for it. And I used to watch Happy Days as a kid, and I loved Pinky Tuscadero. So Pinky T Rexadero made sense. And at one point, I posted these on Twitter, the artist formerly known as Twitter, every so often. And I had posted one of Pinky shoveling the snow on a spring day when there wasn't supposed to be snow. And the Weather Channel picked up on it, and they said, "Hey, can we syndicate this to our nationwide channels, because we're looking for something funny to talk about the snow?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Yeah, Pinky T Rexadero went a little viral. I had people texting me from all over that they had seen me on TV, from California to Colorado to DC, etc., and in New England. And people would go on Bing, and I was on Bing as the top story. So that was just something fun. Now, I don't do it as often because, there's this thing, I can get outside, I can go be around people now, but I still like to do it every so often just for a little bit of fun.
For sure. That seems like something you do a lot, is you like to have fun with your work.
I do.
Yeah, which I appreciate. So kind of along those lines, you were talking about, giving people a laugh, or dealing with this kind of the stress and the fear around the pandemic. And that's something that we're dealing with still, not the pandemic, but people in robotics and automation. I think one of the key pieces of the story that everybody is needing to tell right now is, are thousands or millions of people going to lose their jobs because of what's happening with this innovation? And it seems like Locus has really handled that well. It's kind of a core piece of you guys' story. So I wondered if you could share advice for other companies that might be dealing with this. What has worked for you guys? What hasn't? How have you been able to help people through your content, through your story, to help people navigate this?
Absolutely. I think there is a really strong fear out there that robots coming into a warehouse or anywhere is going to cause people to lose their jobs. But with Locus bots, they were built specifically and created to work alongside workers. We need the humans because the humans are the ones who do the picking. The humans are the ones who look at the display screen that's on the Locus bot and see what they're supposed to pick. They put it into the bin or box or what have you, and then the Locus bot takes it off to its next journey. What we found is that I was talking to a lot of customers, and I hear a recurring theme that before they brought on Locus, their workers were dragging heavy carts of up to 300 pounds for up to 20 miles each day in the warehouse. And that still shocks me, the thought of that. It's just horrifying. It's no life. And so what happens with Locus bots, when the Locus bots come in, they do the walking and the transporting and the carrying. So the workers can stay in just one spot or, in one area. So they don't have to walk the 20 miles throughout the warehouse. And instead, they do the picking. They use their brains, the human brains, to determine what they're supposed to use, and their human arms, etc. And they do the picking and staying in one place while the robots do the carrying of these heavy materials throughout all of the length of a huge warehouse. And so besides the fact of reducing employee injury claims, which, think about it, if you're dragging 200 pounds or 300 pounds every day, you're going to be strained. You're going to strain a whole bunch of repetitive stress injury. Besides that, there's also the fact that the workers now have the cool factor of working with the robots, and B, they also have more energy at the end of the day. They're happier. And many of them that I've talked to have said that they hear from their employees that they actually have the energy to play with their kids at the end of the day, which I think is huge. They didn't have that before because they were walking the 20 miles each day. So they're exhausted when they get back. And so what I've found is that it's easy to work with the robots. The training time takes about 15 minutes. And if people are looking for ways to make robotics easier and less scary for their workers, just make sure that it's something that they are brought into ahead of time and that they're able to see in fact that it's going to actually help them in their jobs as opposed to taking away their jobs.
So do you guys do like trials or like how do you
We don't do demo. We do demos.
No?
We don't do a trial of in the warehouse, but we will have so that people can come see it at demo sites so they can see it in person, or there's videos obviously that the warehouse managers can show to their employees to see that, how easy it is to work with the bots. And there's plenty of that we have that are of the employees' point of view, so they'll actually see what it would be like to work with the bots. But once they start working with it, then they understand that it's not there to take their job away, it's there to help them, and can also in the process upskill them by giving them more skills of working with technology, being able to focus more on the data, etc., that can bring them into higher up jobs.
What all communication mediums do you use to kind of to start bridging these gaps and reduce that fear? What does that look like?
We have a lot of videos that we have of case study videos and the like that will help people to actually bridge that gap, because it's, you want to see people who are actually on your same level, or people who know the industry and talk like you talk or do what you do, to be able to then see that this is something that's okay. It's something that's easy to work with. And so we have case study videos that cover the warehouse associate's point of view, the warehouse manager's point of view, the C-level exec's point of view. So they're people who actually do the jobs that they do every day on a daily basis. So they hear from, and they have that sense of trust. So because they know that these are people who actually are in a warehouse like mine doing what I do, and this has helped them in such and such a way.
That's really cool. I think of it, the humanization of robotics and technology is something that really we kind of all need that right now. So, and everything we just talked about in communication and producing these different media pieces, what's the biggest challenge that you guys have run into in that communication?
Sure. For me, the biggest challenge I've run into when working with and telling the Locus Robotics story is that I didn't work in robotics before I joined the company. I've been here for close to 3 years now, but before that I was in B2B tech across all different kinds of industries, from books to sales software, etc., and storage, all of that. So I had a bunch of B2B tech background, but I never had specifically robotics. So my biggest challenge was ramping up and learning more about the industry, because it's as you know, it's an industry that has its own quirks and terminology and the way that it works. So that was my biggest challenge, was just learning more about robotics. And what I did was I talked to our subject matter experts and spent as much time with them as I possibly could, meaning our product managers to our product marketing managers to our president of the company and sales, and then listened to every single customer testimonial I could find and talk to the actual customers to create more testimonials so I could actually get their terminology, learn how they speak, and be able to use the actual terms that they use to make it more human and more actually something with them.
What you mentioned like there are specific quirks with robotics. What are those, do you think?
The specific quotes with robotics tends to be things that I see more in the warehouse field than in the robotics field, meaning that I heard things like push and pull injuries. I'd never heard that term before, but specifically in warehouses, that's something that happens to associates when they're having to drag, the heavy carts across all of the warehouses from pushing that. That's a specific term that I wouldn't have thought. Or
Okay.
robots as a service. I would never have known that term because it wasn't something I knew about. Software as a service. I know about storage as a service. I know about internet as a service, all of those fun things. But the robots as a service was something specifically new to Locus that I didn't know about before coming here.
Gotcha.
And LiDAR, obviously, too. LiDAR is a term I would never have heard before.
Right. Yeah, that's, I mean, you don't get too much LiDAR terminology working with software.
No, and especially when I was at a sales software company for 2 years before this, and we sure didn't have LiDAR there.
What differences do you see in, like, you were saying that you were selling, or you were working on software before, whereas now you're selling, well, do you sell the hardware, right? Or do
We
you
sell the
sell the
hardware, but there's also it's the full Locus solution. It's the hardware and the software behind it, which is the business intelligence that helps the warehouse managers be able to get a real time analysis of what's going on their warehouse floor and be able to also predict where employees should go based on the orders that are coming in, so they can know, for example, there's a flash TikTok sale or something going on that's going to direct people to buy this specific item that's coming in. So you're
Mm,
going to need more workers there as opposed to working over here. So it's a
I
full
see.
solution. It's the software and the hardware together.
Okay. That's that's so clever. What like differences have you encountered then between like what you were doing before and what and
Sure,
now with
absolutely.
this?
I was at with for specifically the last role before this job. I was a senior writer and marketing person for a sales software company, and for this, it's basically the same thing. They're still writing lots of content. They're still trying to get as much interest in social media as possible, but it's speaking to a different audience because
Mm,
there I was talking to salespeople. We were literally, it was software for salespeople. So there's a different vibe to it than there is with warehouse managers because salespeople are all over LinkedIn. They're all over, they're looking for the next thing that's going to help them to drive more sales. So it's kind of a quirky market. While warehouse managers, sure, they might be on LinkedIn, but there's a different way of talking to them. They want to actually have more technical specifications about what this is going to do to their warehouse, as opposed to kind of the glossy almost of what are the benefits they're going to see of how many more sales they're going to get in. So it's just a matter of figuring out what the benefits are and the pain points for the audience, and then changing the terminology and the ways that you get to them that way. Blogs
okay.
still work, checklists still work for both sales software and for robots, and ebooks. I mean, we all think ebooks are dead, but they're not. At least I don't think they are, because I'll go to a job if they are. So that'd be sad. And then humanizing everything. That's the key to me from whatever job I'm in, is to making sure that I'm talking as a human.
Yeah, it's awesome. But less on LinkedIn is where you're having to go outside of LinkedIn to reach these people. They're like less
Yep. Yeah, I
less
mean, there
that.
is a lot of them we found were on Twitter. We've kind of veered away from Twitter of promoting things on there just in
Mm,
general, just because we find that we see and reach out to people more through actual events or through webinars or through, some of them
mm.
are on LinkedIn or they hear about us through our partners, through our partner programs. And those are people are on LinkedIn, but it's more seeing what people are looking for that they're searching for online that would then be able to guide them our way.
So kind of extending on that humanizing
Mm-hmm.
aspect that you just mentioned. This is something we deal with a lot in in what we do at Raconteur as well with our animations is there tends to be this um, there's the data side, there's the
Mhm.
very left brain side, and then there's the human emotional side. And for us, a lot of the times it's um, creativity. The artists want to do a lot of different things, and then but we also have tech things that we need to communicate. So yeah, we have these kind of opposing forces that we're dealing with on a daily basis. I would call it the techie details versus the emotions.
Mhm.
So I'm curious of what advice or insight you'd have to offer to other people who are working in B2B marketing and storytelling of how do they balance those things and ultimately make them harmonize, because they're both really important, really
Oh yeah,
needed.
they're all super important. I mean, the tech, for me, my choice is always going to be human. I mean, heck, I post T-Rex videos. Of course, I'm going to show the human element, or my random memes on LinkedIn that I've started and got a lot of interest from. But you have to have that balance because you can be human, but you also have to have the specifics in there that are like the technical details, etc., and or the data, the actual data that backs up what you're saying. Because without that, you're kind of just saying fluff. And there's a time and place for fluff, and there's a time and place for digging into the technical details. So you don't want to just have the technical details and the data unless you're doing, say, a data sheet. That's the only time and place where I would put in no human element and just have the data sheet itself and the data itself. But in
Okay.
everything else, I'm going to put a combination of that together, and that harkens back to actually talking to the customers, and again talking about using the words that they use, like the push and pull injuries, or that they need to reduce their SLAs, or that they want a system that just works. Literally, we just heard that the other day from one of the customers, that they were happy to have Locus because it just works. That's it. They don't have to worry about it. And they have 90 million other things to worry about every day on a day-to-day basis, of getting those orders out on time, and reducing their cycle times and making their customers happy. They don't want to have to worry about the software or the hardware in the background. So it really becomes down to making sure that you have that human element that's geared towards the customers, while also making sure that you have the data that backs it up, that says this is why this works, and the technical details when that's necessary.
Well said, for sure. And I appreciate that in the posts and stuff that I've read of your posts about Locus. I
Yeah.
feel like there you do a really good job of drawing people in with that human side, and then flipping it around
Well,
and
thank you.
redirecting it towards the the data, or what you guys are doing on a more technical level, or the benefits, like you were saying before,
Yeah,
features and
thank you. Yeah,
benefits
that's one of the top performing, at least in my eyes, memes that I've done recently was one that was just a regular random meme that I happened to find and decided to use, and it was talking about literally what I said earlier about the walking, pushing carts pushing carts that were like 300 pounds for 20 miles through a warehouse. Those are the specific data points and the problems that they have. But it was first, they got the attention because of that eye-catching meme, and then the data was there to back it up behind him.
What this is just kind of my own personal curiosity, but uh how do you find the memes? How do you make the memes? and
There
and
is either the Giphy, which is the website Giphy, that you can just go in and search for popular ones, or some of them I've made on my own when I was watching the Super Bowl, and I was only watching it for the ads. I'm sorry, or the memes for that matter. Got a picture of Travis Kelsey yelling at his coach and made a meme out of that, and that's the one that actually started the whole thing, because that's the one that got the most interest and most attention. So again, just like Pink T-Rex, if something gets a lot of interest, and I'm going to keep doing it. So, and if the CEO of the company keeps resharing it, I'm going to keep doing it. So, I mean, you can tell that that's how that works. But I find them through things I happen to see on TV, like the Super Bowl or the Oscars, timely things, or I will find things that I just happen to stumble across on Instagram or on Giphy or on just on Image Flips meme generator. You go on there,
Mm-hmm.
you click in popular, and then you can just scroll through all of them. And if I just look for ones that are okay to use in a LinkedIn setting, and also would be considered a little odd, and or ones that I could use some form of taking it and giving it a Locus Robotics twist.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's a fun one. Yeah, they have both videos and the actual just an image. So, but the Giphy's
Okay.
the one I've been going to recently just for um actual just GIFs to use. Like that's where I got the Jennifer Lawrence, what do you mean,
Mm.
crying from the hot sauce about, and said that this is the face you make when you find out your warehouse isn't bringing on locust bots. So there's inspiration everywhere.
Oh, for sure. I think I've only used one meme so far. Or no, more than that. I guess a couple of them for our content, but they're just fun. It's like, I don't know, it brings a lot of levity,
It
which
does. And
I
that's
appreciate.
kind of where I basically live with between the pink T-Rex and the memes. And then I post other things about work every so often, but it's more just kind of creating that human element out there.
So, kind of flipping the script now.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about AI and robotics
Yeah.
affecting, you know, your customers, employees, I should say. AI has been making headline news in the creative industry and especially with
Mm-hmm.
writers. And so I'm wondering what's that been like for you to have ChatGPT come online and
Absolutely. It hasn't affected me personally in a bad way. I have plenty of people I know that have had jobs taken away because of it, and hopefully those companies will be bringing people back now that they've realized ChatGPT isn't the end all be all or the game changer, which is my key top phrase for finding out that something's been written by ChatGPT, by the way. Game changer or in today's world. Both of those are big top ChatGPT. I have used it. I'll use it to take a ebook I've written or a blog post or something and create a draft of an email to promote that or a draft of a social post to promote it and then edit it succinctly. Or to use it to, if I have written this whole blog post and then I don't really want to write a conclusion. I'm not sure where the conclusion should be. I want to get an idea that sums it all up. I'll ask ChatGPT to do that, then I'll edit the crap out of it. I have used it for inspiration. I've given it customer personas I've created customer personas for each of our industries in there. And then I'll ask it, what are the top challenges that someone in this industry in a warehouse would encounter on a day-to-day basis? Or what are the top questions that this person would have? And then I go and find the answers to those by talking to my subject matter experts and then creating a blog post about that or an ebook or a book or what have you. So I find it as a really good way for inspiration and to create chunkable content like the emails or a conclusion or a social post or metadata for that matter. Metadata for a blog post, I use it all the time for that, just so I can just create this, under 40 word meta description and then edit it because it likes
Mm,
to do more than 40 words. I tell it 40 words. It's like, here's 100 with some emojis. I'm like, I'm
yes.
not putting emojis in a meta description ever.
ChatGPT is very verbose. Like literally every prompt I type in, I add keep it short or like
Yeah, exactly.
two
Yes,
sentence.
a former coworker said that he starts putting in "stop yapping" as the thing, and then it will then give you a much shorter version of what you wrote.
That I'm gonna have to remember that. So you just mentioned creating customer personas.
Yep.
What's that look like?
Sure. That is basically, I have for a specific, say, the retail industry, I gave it the information on who our customers tend to be in like the retail industry. So, for example, there's a retail warehouse operations manager that it created a whole profile. This gave the guy the name of Jim. They said that he is in his 40s. He's worked at the warehouse for 20 years. He's moved his way up to warehouse manager. He likes to fish on the weekends, which, okay, that's a detail I didn't really need, but fine, we'll go with it. And so I feed it that. And then every so often I just keep that off to the side and ChatGPT. And every so often I'll just go in and I'll ask it a question. So what does Jim and people who are like Jim, what are they dealing with today in their retail warehouse as their biggest challenges? Or what are the questions that he has when he's looking for a reason to automate his warehouse? Things like that.
Okay. And then would I be correct in saying that that's an ICP?
Yes, yep, that is the ideal customer profile. Yeah, we have those as well that we have created through partnerships that we have and through internally as well. But this one I really just wanted to have up there just as an inspiration for just some topic ideas.
Gotcha. And so you create those outside of ChatGPT based on research or?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's all based on research, and then I feed it into ChatGPT, and then that's where I go to ask it questions.
I've done that a little bit for our customers, but it was not very that's interesting that you get so granular as to like fishing on the weekends.
Yeah, it gave a whole. I asked it for some blog post titles that this Jim might like, and it went for a whole thing about how there were some that were interesting to me, and then there were some of how to provide a soothing aesthetic in your warehouse through color palettes. And I was like, I don't think Jim cares about that, but maybe I'm wrong. But okay, I'm like, I'm going to go with not, or how, who to go to for guidance instead of your therapist. I'm like, really, this is not something I should be writing as a robotics warehouse automation professional. Thank you. But that's good to know for Jim that he's seeking help.
I suppose, everything that ChatGPT creates has to be taken with
you have to take with a huge grain of salt and edit it very, very much because it loves to throw up hallucinations and, false facts and even some false research. Like if I ask it to give me some data points, I then have to make sure that those actually exist somewhere instead of just being made up. And I think I did that once and asked it to create data points out of curiosity. And 4 of the 5 data points it created were wrong. Never existed. So I said, yeah, okay, that's great. I won't be using this for anything factual going forward.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that it'd be that far off. And then, so you just had to you took the data point and
fact check it to see if it actually exists. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. That's good to know.
Yeah, it loves to make up quotes and make up book titles and make up a lot of things that it shouldn't.
Our robot overlords are liars already.
Yeah. I had at one point on my LinkedIn headline that I was a professional liar because I was a copywriter. So I guess me and ChatGPT are kind of the same.
That's Seth Godin's book, right?
Yeah.
All marketers are liars. So, looking to where you see the future going in the industry and robotics and specifically robotics, what advice, recommendations would you have for other people working in marketing in this field for their content and their storytelling? What do they need to be doing to keep their companies growing and thriving?
Absolutely. What they need to do is, it goes back to always be human. You have to make sure that you are being human and speaking to the humans in order to tell the story effectively. And then also be able to, don't plan too far ahead. Like I'm a planner. I love to have things written down in my books, in my notebooks, etc., and love to have everything planned out possibly. But I also know that you have to leave room for change because the industry is continuously changing. We didn't know, 4 years ago, we didn't know the pandemic was going to come about. We didn't know ChatGPT was going to come in to try and sweep out marketing. And so you don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know what's going to be the big issues that your potential customers are going to be dealing with. So, for example, with the robotics industry, a lot of the warehouses had to they were having the ongoing challenges still occur of labor struggles and trying to get orders out on time. But now they're trying to get orders out sometimes for the same day. because of, they're trying to compete with the big guys of, they're trying to do the same day delivery or next day delivery. And they didn't have to do that before the pandemic. So now they are kind of still trying to find their feet. And that wasn't something that would have been on any content marketer's roadmap as a issue of what they'd have to deal with. Basically, always be human, but also talk to your customers to make sure that you're understanding what their struggles are and you're talking to that, be it the labor struggles, be it reducing cycle times, be it, getting peak season. Peak season's coming up again for the fall for retail and spring, not spring, spring retail. There's peak seasons throughout. There can be peak seasons in like the garden industry is right now because people are starting to plant. Or for now, they're planning for pools for the summer, so the pool industry. And then we're going to be back to school and all that stuff. So peak seasons are something that's a constant struggle. So it's something to make sure to speak to because it's a struggle that warehouses are going to come into play.
That right there is like a whole year's content calendar right there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they'd be great to have, but it just doesn't work, unfortunately, in any reality or in today's world.
So kind of winding things down now. I'm curious if do you have any asks for the audience now at the end, or specific messages?
Sure. My only ask is that if there are any warehouse companies out there listening that want to help move what matters in your warehouse, check out Locus Robotics. And on our resources page, we have the Total Guide to Warehouse Automation, which I wrote, which was a hot seller at Modex because it's small, it's slim, but it covers everything from warehouse operations, from receiving to shipping and everything in between of how to automate every single part. And it's not just Locus, it's across the board. So it's a true thought leadership piece.
Awesome. How many pages is that? It's like it's
81.
an actual published book.
Yeah, it's a published book, and we have it as an ebook on the site. And of course, if you want some levity, you can find me on LinkedIn at Mary Hart or search for Pinky T Rexadero on Google and ignore the Pinky Tuscadero that comes up and click on, yes, I'm searching for Pinky T Rexadero, and you'll find those videos.
So they can find you on LinkedIn. What's another good way to contact you if people want to get in touch with you or with?
They could email me at mhart@locusrobotics.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn as well, just searching for Mary Hart, and you can type in Mary Hart Locus Robotics, and I'll come right up.
Awesome. Thanks so much again, Mary, for coming on and chatting. This was super informative, super educational for me. So I appreciate you sharing all this good stuff.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate you having me. It was a pleasure talking.